Good afternoon, everyone. Allison Scoburg here, Consolidated Planning Group. I am happy and pleased to be here with the Dream Team today, and we are going to be talking about bad actors and how to protect your loved ones from financial abuse, fraud, crime, and scams. And this is a big topic. When we have a loved one with a disability, they are the most vulnerable population, and it could be seniors and it could be a young person. It happens to the best of us, and it happens to people that are also neurotypical. So, we're going to be going deep and wide on that today. I always like to go over a few housekeeping items before we get started. We are in webinar mode today, and that means that we can't see you or hear you, but we do know that you're there, and we're glad that you've joined us today. We also invite you to put your questions in the chat box. If you sent in a question previously, we do have those questions. If we don't get to your question today, we apologize for that. A lot of times we don't have time for questions that are off topic, but we can definitely address those on the site, and you can certainly reach out to us on that. So, Consolidated Planning Group, for those of you that are joining for the first time, welcome. We're glad you're here. We do webinars on a weekly basis on planning for special needs. We are nationally certified as Social Security advisors, members of the Special Needs Planning Academy, and chartered special needs consultants. Our whole firm is nuanced in planning for special needs. So here today, we have an awesome crew here. We've got Robert Pierce, Care Navigator at the Christina Lesher Law Office. We have attorney Christina Lesher here with us as well. And we have Anna Lee Kruger with Care Right. And so we have a lot of knowledge here sitting right here in front of you, and we are excited to get into the topics today. So I'm going to just go right ahead into that, and I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Thanks so much for being here. It's always great to be back with you guys. It's been a while. I know that we all partnered together maybe last year sometime, and so it's nice to see all of you again.
Well, thank you so much for having us, Allison. And I feel like this topic is so timely. We usually think about a scam or some sort of fraud for an older adult. And actually, the Federal Trade Commission just came out with a report yesterday that I got through a Google alert that was talking about actually young adults are more likely to lose money on scams compared to seniors. And it talked about because really more they're just online more. So I think it's such a good topic because there's also an element of shame associated with making or getting scammed. And in the spirit of full disclosure, I was scammed. I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago. I got a text. I thought it was UPS saying I owed money for a package delivery, and I have a busy life. I get a lot of stuff delivered. I'm like, oh yeah, here's your $25. And then I realized, oh, that was a scam. So it happens to us when we're busy. It happens to us when we're trying to do multiple things all at the same time. And then it will definitely happen if for people who are neurodivergent or for people getting older, or maybe you're just sick and not you're dealing with a lot of other things. So when something comes up, you may be targeted and something may happen. I think we're ready for the next slide, actually.
Yeah, well, Christina, tell us a little bit about your firm, and Annalee, we want
I'm
to hear a
sorry.
little bit about your firm as well.
Sorry.
I'm like ready to get going.
Yeah, I was like, let's do this, scams. Hi, my name is Christina Lesher. I am an elder law and special needs planning estate planner. I work with my incredible brother, Robert Pierce, who is on the call today. He and I are a brother-sister team that help families navigate the legal issues that surround families planning for their loved ones with disabilities, including wills, supplemental needs trust, special needs trust, guardianships, Medicaid eligibility, how to stay on Medicaid if the Medicaid is reduced, how to do the appeal work. So that's what we specialize in my law office. I'm a graduate of U of H Law Center. We have clients all over the state of Texas. We see people in the office by Zoom. And I'm going to actually pass the baton to Rob, and he can talk about all the good work that he does for our families.
Sure. So my name is Robert Pierce. I'm a case manager, and I've been working with people with special needs for the past 26 years. and with Christina for the past 11. And what I do is kind of the boots on the ground and help Christina. She does all this great planning work, and I try to put it in action as best as possible. And really, my main focus that I do is making sure that our families get the help that they need, in the home or finding facilities and things like that, all around the Houston area. So.
Great. And thank you again for having me on this webinar. This is such an important topic. My name is Annalie Kruger. I am the owner of Care Right Incorporated. I started my company in 2011 after working in long-term care communities called CCRCs, Continuing Care Retirement Communities, for over 28 years as a social worker and an executive director. Every day, adult kids were blindsided because of a medical crisis. Mom's a caregiver to dad with dementia. Mom had a stroke. Now the kids are like, okay, now we have two parents that need care. Dad needs memory care. Mom needs rehab. What do we do? And so they didn't understand dementia. They didn't understand how to navigate senior care, how to broach their parents about these types of intimidating topics. And they certainly didn't have any of their like estate documents in order, their long-term care insurance. They had nothing, nothing in order and at their fingertips. And so I started Care Right in 2011 to solve for that, where families aren't having family meetings to talk about the what whens. And I serve families literally all across the country. Excited about this topic because it actually, the webinar kind of stemmed from a newsletter that I wrote about scams for people of all ages. I was on Nextdoor. If any of you are on Nextdoor, it's kind of like a social media platform for neighborhoods. And every single day, there's seniors on Nextdoor going, hey, I got this text message, and then they know how to like do screenshots. I don't even know how to do that, but they know how to do screenshots, and they're like, does this look legit? Or they'll take a picture of a letter that they got from like the DOT for like, hey, you didn't pay the toll or whatever. And so they're like, they'll take a picture of that. And does this look legit? And so they're constantly, like every day, literally, they're constantly on Nextdoor asking if this looks legit. And then some of them are like, oh, don't click on that because I did. And I got scammed out of like thousands of dollars. And I was so embarrassed. I didn't want to tell my daughter, but she still found out. And so these scammers are so slick. Like if they could just use their skill set for good, we wouldn't have to have these types of webinars. So without further ado, let's just go into some aging considerations. We've sprinkled in just some, because we don't always know who's going to be on this webinar. Obviously, we've got something for everybody on these different webinars that Allison and her team do, and she's gracious enough to allow people like me to join in. So let's talk about some aging considerations. The aging process is bumpy. I've yet to work in, over my 30-year career, a family who's like, oh yeah, this whole aging and family caregiving and dementia process is just smooth sailing. That is so not how this goes down. So the aging process is bumpy. People fall, they get hurt, they get dementia, they get urinary tract infections, they have strokes, Parkinson's, chronic diseases, all of that. And most adult kids get thrust into the role of family caregiving, or spouses get thrust into the role of caregiving, and it's not very comfortable, and it's certainly not sustainable long-term if you don't have an actual aging plan in place. We've talked about memory issues. People get weak and frail. None of us get healthier, stronger, or more able-bodied or more cognizant as we age. So we just need to know that and be realistic and say, okay, if we want to get ahead of this aging issue before we end up getting burned out or before dad's dementia progresses and he ends up wandering out of the house, let's get ahead of this and put an actual plan in place. Quarterly or as needed financial check-ins. That's actually what I responded back to on Nextdoor is get your kids involved with, get your financial power of attorney in place, get your kids involved so that you can work as a team to help make sure that you don't get scammed, because these seniors that do get scammed, they are embarrassed about it, and it's hard to prevent it because, again, these scammers are really slick. Another way to get your family involved is not only the financial check-ins, but also getting all of your documents in order. And Christina and Robert can, and Allison for all that matter, everybody can vouch for like how important it is to have all of your accounts, your passwords, your estate documents, everything in order, and who are the professionals that you work with. Because then if your kids or your loved one ever has to step in because of a scam or because of a medical issue, all of the information that they need is at their fingertips.
You know, Annalee, one of the tips that we provide is streamlining and making things easier. So, you know, when you're a young person, you're acquiring your savings, you got this 401k over here, this mutual fund over there. We got stuff here, there, and everywhere, and it's all fine and good when we're of sound mind and body. But as our memory fades, when you're 80, you don't think the same way that you did when you're 40. And so one tip that we have is streamlining and getting things together and orderly instead of having them all over town everywhere. It starts being confusing. People think that they're missing money or other things like that. And so that is a good piece of advice, is that we're not always as spry as we once were as we age, for sure.
And the grab and go, it's a checklist that we go through with our clients. You can also get it off the my CareRight Inc. website. But sometimes people are like, well, yeah, we need to plan ahead in case dad has a stroke or whatever. But the reality is all of us are I was hit by a school bus 4 days after my 40th birthday. Like, so life has its own agenda, or if you get scammed, all those things can happen. So it's really important to like get all your stuff in order and go over it on a regular basis to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Red flags that families need to get more involved. Because here's the thing too, if you're, like a sandwich generation, if you're the sandwich generation parent, you've still got kids at home, or you have your special needs children or adult kids, or young adults that you're also, involved in and caregiving and managing. And then you get that call that your dad had a stroke and you're like, I don't have any bandwidth left. Like my plate is full. So these are some proactive red flags that I encourage you to just kind of pay attention for your aging parents. If they're not managing their mail, you go and check on them, and there's 3 months of mail piled up, that tells you that they're not able to manage their mail anymore. And unfortunately, in my line of work, that's usually when the adult kids are like, oh gosh, we didn't realize, because they didn't know the signs or these red flags. So that's why we're going over them. And then that's oftentimes when they realize that their parent was actually scammed, because now their credit cards are all maxed out, or they're getting leased. Their lease didn't get renewed, or their apartment didn't get renewed. So really managing their mail. Check their cell phone, just like Christina said, she got that text, she clicked on it. Who hasn't clicked on a link in a text message? Check the bank accounts on a regular basis, and absolutely the credit cards and the credit card bank alerts. Get those set up so that you can get a text, so that if there's a weird charge, you already know you already are alerted to it. And you can also limit the credit card availability. A lot of my seniors have a 20, 30, 40, 50,000, I work with high net worth folks usually. And so they have high balance availabilities, and there's nothing worse. Well, there's a lot of things that are worse than losing a bunch of money, but this is preventable, right? So that's when the kids find out that, oh my gosh, the $75,000 credit card is maxed out from a scam. So these are all red flags and some approaches that you can use to like try to get ahead of it before they get even more scammed, or prevent it in the first place.
Yeah, and like, have you ever used TrueLink with your
Yeah.
adult? So TrueLink we use a lot with our young adults and adults that are living with disabilities or have disabilities. And what it is, it's a great way that you can add money to an account. If your kid or your older adult is on Medicaid, it's not going to cause a Medicaid eligibility. And it has a great dashboard where you can control the deposits and so forth. So I have something like that similar for my kids, and we've used it with clients with a lot of success.
And we've heard of Greenlight. We've heard of people using Greenlight too. That's another one. We did do, so if you're hearing about TrueLink for the first time, we do have a webinar on our YouTube channel about TrueLink and how that all works. So you can check that out on the Consolidated Planning Group YouTube channel. So tell us some more about these red flags, Annalee.
And the other, just to piggyback on the other solution, a lot of families do, they're old school, right? So they get the gift cards. Mom and dad, you want groceries? Here you go. There's Walmart or Target or Pick and Save or Publix, whatever you have in your area. They'll do gift cards. They'll also do that. And I saw, Christina, that you're addressing this in your slides as well. But like when your aging parents start getting companion care coming in, absolutely have that money, the credit cards, all of that stuff locked away so that you just take that issue right off the table, off out of the get-go. All right, so more red flags that families might want to think about getting more involved is develop the relationship with the attorney, the financial advisor, and the physicians, and anyone else that your parents have on their team, maybe, you know, their accountant, like who is their professional team, and develop relationships and have their contact information. And I promise you, all of these professionals want to get to know you. So schedule a call and a Zoom meeting or something so that you can get a relationship started and have them in your contact list. And are bills getting paid? You know, double check. Are they paying their mortgage, their rent? Last week, I just picked up another family member on services because he came to see his dad. It's been about 6 months because of some family dynamic issues. And so he only sees his dad twice a year. And in that time, his dad's dementia progressed. And in that time, the dad wasn't able to manage his mail. So we literally had 6 months of bills piled up. And one of those letters was the eviction notice because he hadn't been paying his rent. So these are things that are blaringly obvious that we need to like get ahead of. Check insurance premiums. I've had clients that were still driving and they never renewed their car insurance. Also, the review the credit report, do that on an annual basis. And I work with a lot of trust officers, and they suggest that they lock and freeze the credit so that they can't get credit cards in their name. So those are some additional ideas. And I know Christina has a whole bunch more too that she's going to talk about further down. Further into the presentation.
Now, okay.
No, I know you have like a whole bunch of like jam packed, like you guys that are on this webinar, like this is a jam packed webinar. There's 100 different things, 100 different takeaways. So
Okay, so why older adults, people in special needs? You know, like we talked about previously, everybody is at risk for being scammed, including myself. We have some statistics there. What I see in my practice is someone getting older, and maybe they just lost a little bit of their capabilities, but what we call bad actors, or people that are trying to defraud or steal money. It's unbelievable how they can detect even just a very slight deterioration in someone's cognitive abilities, and they jump in the mix. It may surprise you. We say it may not always be close to family or friends, but it might be. One of the saddest cases that we've seen in our practice was during COVID. We had a client who was an older lady. She was having some health issues, and all of a sudden a friend that she had been a little bit estranged from popped back in. So of course the family has a level of trust that they wouldn't have from a neutral or some third party or a healthcare provider. And then this friend started doing things like getting her will changed, getting on her bank account. And it was not a happy ending. So it might be somebody that is very close to you. It might be somebody that is mowing the lawn. We've had reports of a lawn care service where our client's mother, the only place that she asked to go to the restroom was at her mother's house. And every time she went into the home, she asked the mother for money. And then it would start with like little amounts and then kind of build up. And then it puts the person in a very awkward situation. So they feel like if I don't give them money, then they're not going to be friends of mine. And they're isolated. So they're very susceptible to these types of scams. Rob, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, even something as just as paying their phone bill or getting them to take out an account on like T-Mobile or, Verizon or something like that, just say, hey, how about you add me to your T-Mobile account? Just things like that. And it might not to the individual might not feel like they're taking advantage of them or that they're defrauding them. They're just being a friend and doing that, but they're being taken advantage. And so that's something that I've ran into, several times working with individuals. Another one, I had a client whose family is over in the UK, and she just has some friends here in the United States, and she's pretty much just here by herself. And so she really is stressing trying to find people to be her powers of attorney. And so this, next thing she knows, she's trying to find people to act as her power of attorney, and was ended up in the hospital. The person who acted as her power of attorney, started doing all these financial moves while she was in the hospital, while she had a UTI. And when this person got better, realized this person was acting, against her interest. And so then we had to unwound all this stuff. And so these are the things that happen when we think people are really acting in our interest, but they're not.
And the other thing too is, and not to like have you guys leave this webinar totally paranoid and not trusting anyone. However, there is something to be said and just being careful, right? Like that's why we're hoping that one of the takeaways is get to know the people that your loved one is around. So as I said, I work more on the senior side, the end of life side of things, but like our dementia patients are completely susceptible. Our elderly, with AI technology, they're getting these phone calls that sound like their kids. But I've had senior clients that unfortunately their housekeeper of 10 years started to violate those boundaries and start taking money or get their names on the credit card as well. Because, well, I'm local with your mom, so I can always go to the store, and then pretty soon you see all these other massive charges on the credit card. Dog sitters, dog walkers, I've seen it all. So one thing I would really one thing I encourage families to do is it doesn't ruin the relationship if it's the right person, but there's nothing wrong with if you're going to hire a dog sitter or a dog walker or a housekeeper for your parent. There's nothing wrong with you taking that next step of doing a criminal background check, of scoping them out, look at their Facebook page, just Google them and find out if there's anything going on with them. The right person won't be offended by that.
Right.
Absolutely. And that the right person would probably welcome it and offer.
Yes.
And I would also say trust your instincts too. You can't just relax and say, okay, we've got somebody taking care of our adult child or our mom or somebody, and then relax. I think we're ready to go to the next slide.
I just want to say too, one thing that I've seen is like kind of abuse of a person with an intellectual disability or something, and maybe they're living like in an apartment, maybe they're getting Social Security or SSI, they've got public benefits coming in, maybe they're getting food stamps. And what I've seen is a person befriending this person, and then the next thing they're moving in, and this person is not intellectually disabled. They know what they're doing. They're usually down on their luck. They don't have any money, but the person with the disability is so eager to have friends, and they want to please, and they start giving stuff away, and they let this person move in because it's my best friend.
Yeah.
And so there's some really tricky things like that for our loved ones, not necessarily seniors that have some capacity issues. And maybe, we use the term, I'm not a huge fan of the term, but if high functioning, we've got kids that are ADHD, or maybe they're level 1 autism or other things like that, and they're gaining independence, they're getting where they're going, they're not quite there yet, they've got some supports in place, but there's some definite situations where I've seen with that.
Well, on the senior side of things though, too, these folks tend to be pretty isolated, pretty lonely. And when I ask my clients, what are your goals as you age? It's always the same thing. I want to age in place at home and I don't want to be a burden on my kids. So they'll, especially if they're like a widow, and they're not used to being alone and they're really lonely, they'll let other seniors or other people just move in and open up their house to whoever. And they don't do any kind of screening, but they do that because they're lonely and they don't want to be a burden on their kids, but they know that they need some help. And so they're looking for any opportunities to like be independent as much as possible and be able to stay at home, but sometimes it's to their detriment. So you always have to be really careful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a good point for us to be thinking about as we age in place, what's the balance between being around people and an element of safety and not being a burden, but having independence. Okay, so some common scams targeting seniors, phishing scams. Rob, you want to talk about some phishing scams
So phishing scams are your classic emails, trying to get you to send things. Lottery prize, hey, you won, but you need to send us some money. The classic IRS, hey, you owe us money. Romance scams, hey, let's go away, but I need some, but I bought us the tickets, but oh no, my credit card isn't working. How about this? The home repair scams is really popular here in Houston and probably Florida also. Hey, we had a storm come through. Let me look at your roof. Oh, your roof needs to be repaired. Oh, I can fix your whole roof for $3,000.
And they want the money up front. And
I need the money up front. The rest will be through insurance. It's just $3,000. That's not how much a roof costs to get fixed. But and then so they'll get this money up front and you'll never see them again. So these are very common tech support scams. My mom loves to try to fall for this one. That something will happen on the computer and they said that the computer's locked and you need to call them and you call them and they say we need a Google gift card worth $500 to unlock your computer. So all these are all different common scams that will happen, that can happen to anybody, not just seniors, but they're very common. And my favorite is the threat of the arrest. Your sheriff's office will call you and say that they're going to come and arrest you. Just a tip out there: no sheriff office is going to call you before they come to arrest you. They just show up to arrest you.
We had one this year, Rob, where the kid had level 1 autism, was working a full-time job. He was a little awkward, sweet kid. He really just wanted a girlfriend, and he didn't mind telling everybody he met that he was really looking for a girlfriend. And so he met this girl online who was out of the country. And he was in love and he was going to marry her and she was wonderful. And everybody, I mean, there were warning signs everywhere and everybody was talking to him and telling him. And this kid was super high functioning. He, drove a car, had a full-time job and everything like that. And then as it turned out, he was scammed and he had sent over $5,000 to her over the course of a 6 or a 7 month period. And then he found out that she was married and it was all a scam and she's been doing this. And then because of the country, I mean, like there's no help for him. Like there's really no help for him. He's not getting this money back. And this caused such an emotional disturbance for him because he was seriously in love and getting married. I mean, he was super excited. He's the happiest he's been. He literally lost his job over this because he was just so emotionally not okay. After this happened, he lost his job. I mean, it's really had a big fallout, and there was really no recourse because sadly, he still believes, like he thinks he should go there and see her, that he could convince her that she does love him after all. And so he's not even recovered yet. Like, so it is a big deal. And there are a lot of our vulnerable population are kids with disabilities that do want friends and they do want a boyfriend or a girlfriend. And there are a lot of tricks of the trade with that. And it's pretty terrible.
Everybody's starved for attention and everybody wants love and support. And so the romance game is very easy to fall into. There's a whole TV show on MTV called Catfish. So
I wanted to add to on the other scam list is medical scams. My dad almost fell for that. My dad is 87 and he lives with me in the winter months because who wants to be in Iowa when it's 20 below, and I live in Florida. Although we're preparing for a hurricane for next week, so there's that. But my dad had his hip done 2 years ago, and he had a knee done like 6 years ago. And so he got a phone call, and thank God he was here and I was here when he got the phone call. But it was a medical scam. They're like, "Oh, Arnold Kruger, you got your knee done, and this is the medical provider that, did your knee, and we're just making sure things are going okay." Like it sounded so so legit in the beginning. And thankfully, my dad, not thankfully, because it's really annoying, but he doesn't wear his hearing aids when he lives with me. So my dog barks and then he's like, "Oh my God, your dog's barking." And so he puts the phone on speaker every time he answers it. So I was actually doing a call. I was on a webinar that I was presenting on, and I'm like listening to my dad because I'm like, wait a minute, this is now going into the danger territory on this call that he's on. And so I had to actually like step away from the webinar quick because he was getting ready to give out all of this information, his address, my address, all of this stuff. I'm like, Dad, just hang up. So they start out like your best friend and then it goes south quickly.
Yeah, so I think the scammers know what is missing with you, and they are talented and nuanced on how to provide that to you to get what they want from you. So I think just paying attention is a good one, and using your instinct. So
I also just wanted to say, training with seniors and with your loved one with a disability on what you put out there on social media and what you don't, because sometimes people are putting all the cards out on the table for all the world to see, and it makes them very easy to target. So I think that's really important.
Absolutely.
Allison, that's a really good point too, because people will say, well, my dad's he's gonna be in the hospital for, or rehab for like 3 or 4 weeks. And so every time I see these on Nextdoor or Facebook or wherever I see them, they're everywhere. I'm like, oh my gosh, you just opened up an opportunity for theft and a scam. And so just, yeah, use a lot of discretion on what you post.
Yeah. So, watch out if you get calls or emails or messages, anything that's unsolicited, make sure you always be careful of that. The pressure, really, it's the pressure that I see, especially, anytime that someone's trying to push and push and push is something that's always a huge red flag. Anytime they're asking for personal information, too good to be true. I find the too good to be true, especially in job offers, especially when we're looking for jobs for our special needs kids. Like they'll really try to be like, "Oh no, this is a great job opportunity. We just need, $500 for a starting fee for this." And then the kids are gonna be like, "Oh no, I can make all this money, but I just need to get them some money. I just need to get to the starting cost for them." And I'm like, "No, no, no, no job is gonna want some money for you to get started." So all these things that you have to watch out for, really, if when we're out there really making sure that for our guys to be safe. Is the secrecy thing is also a really big one. If someone's pushing like, "Okay, we're going to do this, but you make sure you don't tell anybody." And that one, especially with the bad actors, with people coming into the house, that's a big one that I see is like, "Oh no, no, it's okay. I'm gonna, if you let me borrow this money, but make sure you don't tell anybody about this," and then you'll see them trying to keep a secret, and you'll know something's off, and you can see that something's going on. And that's really when the hairs on my back of my neck start to really kind of go off. So
especially if you see like a lot of cash withdrawals or Venmo or Zelle transfers that are uncommon and they can't be accounted for. So we have the trusted friend or family member. We talked about that a little bit. Unusual financial activity. If someone's taking you to the Kroger parking lot to sign your parents' will, that's probably not someone you want to be with. We've had that in our office. We also see adult siblings financially exploit their parents, and it gets muddy because maybe that adult child has always been financially helped by the parent. But now that the parent's getting older, somebody has stepped in as the financial power of attorney, and I have to explain to that financial power of attorney, I know that has been the family history, but you have a fiduciary and a financial responsibility to your parent. And we really have to have this conversation about all the cash and the freedom that your sibling has to your parent's account. Because it's different when somebody gets older, now they need their money for their care. So we look at that as ask for money or loans. Especially if someone's just come out of a hospital and somebody new shows up, and a trusted friend or family member, especially if they haven't been around for a while, shows up, that's a huge red flag. And the difficulty with this is there's not always a clear solution. You know, we talk about financial powers of attorney. A medical power of attorney in Texas is not going to be effective until the person's incapacitated. Capacity, we could do a whole 8 hours on capacity, but maybe the person has limited capacity, not enough to trigger the medical power of attorney, not enough for a guardianship, really not enough for adult protective services, but yet we know what's happening is not right. Those muddle situations to me are the most difficult.
You know, Anna Lee, we had a case of a senior who was getting out of the hospital and coming home with pain meds, and the estranged daughter that has been estranged forever and ever came in to save the day to be the caregiver. And him coming home and was there for less than a day, stole all the pain medication and left him in a lurch. So like we've seen things like that happen too. I mean, it's not, those are things that are not every day, but it does happen, especially like you were saying, Christina, the people that come out of nowhere that have been estranged for a long time and then they're here to come save the day. Be wary.
It is and it's sad that you know I am sometimes feel a bit jaded. It's just that I've seen a lot of things go sideways with with our vulnerable adults and stuff. So I'm always like very careful first. So I also wanted to, this is a good slide to talk about this. So maybe I should just zip it until you get through your content.
Yeah. Right. Do you mind taking this one? Because you do a lot of work with our clients on looking for trusted caregivers.
Sure. So, you know, when I talk about finding caregivers, really, so the two main places are referrals. So people that you know have worked with people before, I think is a great source of finding good caregivers, because you've had them work with people, they've worked with them before. It's a great source. Through home health agencies is another good one. They've done a lot of background checks. They will check them out. They'll train them. They're responsible for them. That's another great place. There are other places, you know, their online websites you can go to. There's also other word of mouth places. If you do find somebody that you're not really sure of, you know, do a background check. I also recommend a nurse misconduct registry check. That way you can see, has this person had a license before? Have they lost the license? Why did they lose the license? You know, it can become from anything from abuse, neglect, exploitation, mismanagement of meds, you know, all sorts of things. So doing these simple checks that are free or low cost online can save a lot of help. I mean, a lot of misery and stuff in the future. I also think you should, you know, talk to the caregiver, say, hey, I am going to have cameras and security stuff in the house. If they have a problem with that, then you have a problem with that caregiver. You know, they shouldn't have an issue with that at all. You know, so that, and just, you know, secure things, you know, make sure that, you know, there's, you know, very little stuff that's tempting them online, because having cash and other valuables out, you know, you could have a caregiver who was great and never had an issue before, but they might be going through a family tragedy and they might slip up. So let's make it less tempting for them.
Yeah.
So just doing these things are just makes sense, so we can do that. Annalee?
Yeah, a couple things about this. I cannot agree more that yes, it's going to cost a few dollars an hour more to go through an actual home care company. But then they're not your employee. Then if the employee doesn't show up for their shift, then the scheduler at the home care company should hopefully be able to have a backup person that they can either send. But a lot of times because families want to save as much money as they can, or seniors want to save as much money as they can, they'll use, different online platforms. I won't say what they are, but they'll use different online platforms to try to find care. Well, that doesn't mean that these people are properly trained. They haven't had a criminal background check. They haven't had a drug screen. Who knows if they have a valid driver's license? So there's a lot of dirty people. There's a lot of bad actors on some of these online platforms that people can use to get care. And then the other thing too, just because I am on Nextdoor, they'll Nextdoor, the good thing about Nextdoor is it's a pretty decent community for like making referrals. So a lot of times, because seniors don't want to bother their kids, they'll put these posts on Nextdoor like, hey, I just need some help getting my mail or getting me to and from doctor's appointments. So know that there's these other like Nextdoor that they use to like communicate back and forth. That can be a good thing, because then it can be like, oh, I can recommend these people because this is who I used in the past. But you just always have to double and triple vet the people that you or someone else is bringing into the house to make sure that your loved one is safe. And a lot of times when we do these different types of webinars, these educational webinars, like in my business, like the adult kids will be like, okay, well, this is all fine and dandy, but how do I get mom and dad on board with this? Because they want to hire, Joe Blow, because he's $12 an hour and he's just like some neighborhood kid, and he's not trained to take parents to the bathroom or whatever. And so you can leverage this webinar and say, family, whoever it is that you're listening to this for, I watched this really educational webinar. They gave us so much information about just a lot of bad actors and a lot of things that we didn't really think about. And as we're working on lining up care for you or for our loved one, these are some things that we need to really think about, and using actual professionals who this is what they do for a living. A lot of our seniors will use their housekeeper. And now the housekeeper is trying to figure out how to put the oxygen cannula on the nose properly, or take Ethel to the bathroom when her area of expertise is vacuuming and doing dishes and the housework stuff. But now she's kind of thrust into caregiving because she needs extra money and the family feels like they can trust her. So just know that there's a lot of, you got to find a trusted caregiver that actually is properly trained and knows what they're doing, that you can trust.
Very good. And I love on this slide, Christina, where it says consider the TrueLink card for caregiver purchases. I think that's a fantastic idea. And we do have people ask about that. And that is much cleaner, especially if your child is getting SSI or whatever. It's much cleaner, because I had some families that were taking cash out. And it's just, it could be questioned, I guess, is what I would say on that. But the other thing about that I think about with the TrueLink card for seniors with diminished capacity, but they haven't forgotten everything and they don't want to give up control. This TrueLink card is really a nice thing, because you can put all those limits on there, and then they still have a debit card that they can swipe and that they can use, but it could be used with caution. We did have a family that we were working with whose father in their 80s, diminished capacity, who was scammed out of $300,000 last year. So it really, really does happen. And then also there comes this time, and Annalee, I know you know this, where like the kids of the seniors or whatever, they don't want to upset mom or dad. They don't, they want it to go smoothly and everything to be good, but they know that the person is having a hard time aging. They don't like feeling the way that they're feeling, and they're not trying to make them have a worse day and that kind of thing. But there's got to be some balance in that and safety.
Yeah.
So you prevent some kind of loss, like a $300,000 loss.
Well, and exactly, because that's why in some of those earlier slides, I talked about, having a quarterly financial family meeting or a financial, check-in, and looking, having these, because this is all fine and dandy, but you might be sitting there thinking, okay, this is all fine and dandy, but how do we get from webinar to action? So again, leverage this webinar, but say, you know, for everyone's well-being, let's have a quarterly family meeting, or let's have a quarterly finance meeting where I can help you go through your credit cards and your bank statements and start normalizing that conversation so it doesn't feel so scary. Certainly if your loved one has been scammed, they'll see the value in it now, but unfortunately it's only because they got scammed out of tons of money usually, or got physically hurt by a scammer. And so leveraging this webinar and starting these family meetings or conversations about, we really need to put some safeguards in place so that you're safe, and that we feel like we have peace of mind knowing that you've got the right caregivers and the right supports in place for what your needs are.
Absolutely. So, Allison, let's go to the next slide that's up, acting outside the law. Yeah, going back, sorry. Yeah, so, this slide is about when you have a loved one that may need to go to a nursing home or may be discharged to a nursing home from a hospital. And you've run out of Medicare days, or you've been told that your loved one's not improving, and so you want to apply for Medicaid. The facility will say, you can use our lawyer, or we can send you to a lawyer that works for us, and they will help you with the Medicaid application process. So you have to be careful about who the attorney is that's helping you with that Medicaid application. I've practiced Medicaid law for 22 years, and I learn something brand new every day. A lot of times it's from Allison. So I will tell you that it's a practice that is very nuanced and case specific. So what I see is the nursing homes trying to do the application, not doing it correctly, not looking at all the different elements that go into a Medicaid application. The application submitted, 6 months later, it comes back denied, and now the family owes the nursing home $100,000, and the nursing home's like, well, you've got 30 days to leave because you owe us all this money, or you need to pay us. And that 100% is typical. I mean, it's usually avoidable. Beware of somebody who is not a lawyer and is giving Medicaid advice, because in order to give Medicaid advice for a fee, you have to be an attorney, and there's actually a criminal code. It's a misdemeanor to give Medicaid advice for a fee if you're not a lawyer. So we're concerned about non-attorneys like nursing home staff giving Medicaid advice. They are not trained in Medicaid law. They are not trained to provide all the different things and steps that needs to go into this complicated process. And we are also seeing attorneys without Medicaid knowledge trying to practice law in the Medicaid field. There's no way I would ever do personal injury, because I know nothing about personal injury law. The law is a lot like medicine, where attorneys have their specialty, and it's a very complex process and changes constantly. So please be sure you're getting advice from somebody that practices Medicaid planning. I tell my clients, I don't do dog bites, I don't do divorces, I don't sue people. But if you want to apply for Medicaid, or if Medicaid says you're not eligible, or they cut your hours, I'm your lady. Okay, Rob, anything you want to add to that?
No, perfect.
All right, thank you. Senior financial advisors, we see a lot of those trying to sell annuities to somebody where they've been told, either maybe by a nursing home, maybe by a CPA, that they're not eligible for Medicaid. Maybe they really are eligible for Medicaid. They don't need an annuity, but here we get an annuity where they didn't need one. Or even worse, that annuity that they've purchased causes a period of ineligibility. So you really need to be careful where you're getting your information from. Make sure it's an elder law attorney that's familiar with the different requirements for annuities, and understand that not all attorneys are the same. Not all financial advisors are the same. So Allison is a very specialized practitioner. And so she has years of training in this, knows when to ask for questions. I am the same way. So know that you're getting your information from the right source. The attorney that goes to church with you, the attorney that lives next door to your parents, they may or may not be specialized in this area, and the financial advisors are going to be the same one.
Including your brother, the real estate attorney. He probably shouldn't do your legal documents for the special needs
No,
trust and stuff like that.
no.
No offense on sibling relationships, but sometimes, your neighbor that's going to do it for you for free. Or
Mhm.
another one that I've seen is, oh, I have this legal benefit through my employer.
Yeah.
Um, I always tell people, fine, send me the list and I'll look at it and I'll tell you if there's anybody great on there. Okay. But usually the ones that you would want, they're very general practitioners on that list of those legal plans that you can get through your employer. So it just really, really is important to work with a specialist. And I just wanted to comment on the annuities, Christina. Gosh, I would say more so than not, the annuities are probably not in the best interest of the client. And we do see a lot of those that people come to us. Like I have one this week of a lady and her husband is deceased and she has a severe a child, an adult child with severe needs and limited resources. And this advisor put like 75% of her limited resources in an annuity. I don't even know how they got it approved. But these annuities have long surrender penalties. They have steep costs to get out of them, and they are considered an illiquid investment. Now, where they might be good is if somebody is trying to create a guaranteed income stream or a guaranteed pension. So there are good places for this, but there are a lot of misplaced annuities that should have never been written. So I couldn't agree with you more on that.
And let me just add, I see 4 new families a week. I probably do an annuity twice a year. Because I can usually find a way around it where I do not have to encumber or tie up my client's money. Sometimes we actually have to do that, but if there's a way for me to avoid that, we will. Okay, if you've been a victim, we've got some pointers here for you. I think Adult Protective Services, which you can do online. You're definitely going to want to contact your bank and your credit card. There is also a way for you to freeze somebody opening a bank account as well as on your credit and keep good records and contact your local authorities and the Federal Trade Commission. Rob has a check. Oh, is that for another comment or is that if you've been a victim?
Oh, that's the nurse misconduct registry check.
Oh, okay. So Rob's got a comment in there where the nurse misconduct registry. I would definitely check that for anybody that would come in my home.
Do you have any insight? It's okay if you don't, regarding the credit bureaus, because we've had somebody where they had something on their credit report. It was clearly not them. Like it was like this big credit card with a $48,000 credit limit that was issued to what would have been an 8-year-old child. So maybe it was a name mix up, but like literally they wouldn't answer the phone. They didn't respond. They have all these emails and stuff like that. I don't know if you have any insight of how to get that kind of thing resolved.
No, that would definitely be, I would look to like a consumer protection attorney. So
Okay, cool.
if somebody
All right.
contacts you with that need, just let me know and I can help you find it.
Yeah, you would think that they would answer the phone or at least respond or something, but nothing. Crickets.
Mm, mm, mm. Okay, let's see. Rob, you want to do this one?
Yeah, so if the biggest thing, especially with computer fraud, and if something's happened with your email and things, because a lot of us get really lazy with cybersecurity, and we use the same password for everything. The one thing that I see a lot, especially with working with clients, is writing down the passwords in books. That's available for caregivers or bad actors to get a hold onto. Changing security passwords and settings is very important. Maybe trying to set up a password system so they have programs online or something that you can use to help you maintain password security. There's different programs you can use for that, so that way you're not actually using your book that someone can access and get into while they're doing some caregiving for you. My own mother is very bad about that. If I need a password of hers, I can just go down to her password book
Yeah.
and get it downstairs. and go through the scribbled ones that she has. So
Robert, my dad had his passwords on his cork board above his kitchen table
Yeah.
for everyone to see.
yeah.
I was like,
So
no.
yeah. So file complaints, monitor your accounts. Even so with how easy it is for banking access now, it's easy to look at your bank records to see if there's any suspicious activity. Monitoring those accounts is very easy to do. So if you see something, if you live in Texas and all of a sudden you see a purchase in California, look into it, call and find out. I bank with a credit union that I pay like, I think it's $1 a month for a consumer protection, and they will call me all the time and be like, hey, is this you? Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not, and they're very proactive about that. So just working with your bank and having those online protections is good, and telling your families about stuff, if you've been a victim of something, is a big one, so that they can help you with things. My mom has actually gotten a lot better of telling me when she's accidentally clicked on things. So yeah, setting set your computer up is a great way to protect yourself. um so stay aware of common scams, know what's going on. um Christina, if you want to do the powers of attorney.
Yeah, so one way to protect ourselves is with a power of attorney or medical power of attorney. But know that there are limitations to these documents. First of all, they can be revoked at any time. Second of all, you can not even be a scammer and be an honest person trying to help your parent. You can't get the bank to approve it. Or you could have it fraudulently done, or signed in the Kroger parking lot and then take it to Chase Bank and they accepted it immediately. So even with these documents, it's not necessarily all the protection that you'll need. We have seen cases where somebody may have had powers of attorney, which are meant to appoint decision makers in case of incapacity. But because those documents don't have enough teeth, we sometimes have to go and get what we call guardianship, which is a legal process where there's one legal decision maker that all third parties, financial institutions, and medical professionals have to recognize their authority over somebody. Sometimes there's ways that we can avoid that. One of them is sometimes we'll put the person's money in a revocable trust. We'll work with a bank, have a good relationship with a local bank that will watch the withdrawals and make sure no one will try to come and get it. Sometimes that will help. And one of the things I just wanted to bring up, we didn't have it in the PowerPoint, and it's just a problem. I don't necessarily have a solution. Maybe Annalee can help. Are the people that don't have enough money for a professional trustee or a bank to come in and don't have a financial or power of attorney or someone that can act in that capacity. Annalee, do you have any thoughts on that?
So sometimes people will use like a daily money manager, which can be somewhat more affordable, and it's a neutral third party person. A lot of our solo agers will do that because they don't have kids. But there's not a lot of resources for some of those folks that are in kind of that gap area, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And even with like guardians, like I'm in Florida, but I work with families literally all across the country. There's just a massive shortage of even guardians, and there's massive shortage. There's not a lot of people that will be a professional power of attorney because of the liability risks associated to that. So it's really important that you have these conversations and think these things through now to safeguard yourself.
And I think that goes a couple of things. I wanted to say that we have entire webinars on special needs trust, first party, third party special needs trust, entire webinars on guardianship and alternatives to guardianship. So you'll want to check that out on the Consolidated Planning Group YouTube channel. And I think that when it comes to these people, it's that job, it's not for the faint of heart. When we're thinking about the medical power of attorney, you may have a kid that is capable, but maybe they couldn't make that decision because your mom or whatever. But having these conversations, so thinking about this for yourself, for your adult kids that you've sent off to college that are neurotypical, for your adult kids with disabilities, for your aging parents and family members. It is really, really, really important to get these things in place.
It is. And I do want to just say real quick, because I know we're running low on time. This stuff goes like super fast because there's so much to share with you guys. But one thing to think about is sometimes, like I see this all the time, the adult kids don't even know that they were named the power of attorney.
Yeah.
So then they've never had any conversation about, well, what does dad and mom, what do mom and dad actually want towards
Yeah.
the end of life, or where are the finances? Like, what are the accounts and passwords? I can't step in and pay bills if I don't even know what systems are in place. And just also know that when you've been appointed, or if you agree to be a power of attorney, if they did have a conversation with you, just like if, like what Allison just said, if you're going to be power of attorney for, you know, your kids, but also your husband or your spouse or your aging parent and your sister and all this, it ends up being a full-time job. So just really know what you're getting into. And especially if you're an only child and you've got your aging parents and stuff, and then you're the power of attorney. My adult kids, they might be the power of attorney of 4 to 6 aging loved ones because they've got blended families, and then that stray aunt that outlived her kids or never got married. And they're like, oh, Sally is my power of attorney. Just appoint her. She's so good at it. And now Sally's like, oh my God.
Right. Well, I think again, it is just so critically important to kind of look at these things, make sure that we have these documents in place, make sure that we're thinking through these things. And one thing I just want to end on, I know we're out of time for today, is that consider having these conversations with the people that you love in your life. Maybe they're aging, maybe they're not, depending on the generation that people are from. They may keep their cards close to their chest. And here, this webinar has kind of been, maybe you should keep your cards close to your chest. You don't, have your passwords out. You don't put everything out there. You don't want to put yourself out there for the risk of scams and all of those other things. But so we often talk to our clients about how to talk to their parents, because one thing that we know is that we know that our parents' financial advisor doesn't have any background in special needs, that the chances of that are slim to none. And when grandma and grandpa go to them and say, hey, listen, we want to leave some money to our grandson, he has a disability, and they say, great, what's his name? So like there are really important conversations. So we encourage things like this, kind of just a conversation. I'm just going to one off this, but mom and dad, listen, we've recently been planning for our own financial future, and we've learned the right way and the wrong way to leave money to little Johnny, and things we didn't even know. We've been learning a lot and getting stuff in order, and it occurred to me that I don't know what I don't know as it relates to you, and I'm not trying to get in your business. I don't need account balances or anything like that, but I want to share with you what we're doing, and hopefully you can share with me, what you have in mind, so that way, while you're of sound mind and body, I know, so that way I'll be in a position to take action in the future should I need to. And usually people start opening up about that, and there's letters about that and stuff like that, but have those intentional conversations. Don't wait for the stroke or the massive heart attack that the person dies from, and it's just too late. So, Christina, did you have any closing thoughts?
I was just gonna say, I think everything that we've talked about today has been great. This is not something that has to be done overnight, so if the information was overwhelming, just take a look at the slides. Think about the documents that you will have or your loved one will have if they're incapacitated. Start with gathering asset information, and then that would be a good place to start having a conversation about like who, what, where, and when.
For sure.
And all of us offer, well, maybe I shouldn't speak for all of us. I know I offer a free 30-minute consult. So if anything that I talked about with like dementia, senior care, my kind of part of this topic, if any of that hit home for you, I put my contact information, plus you have it as well on the slides. But I know we were talking about like big sums of money that people were getting scammed out of, but I've had other people that, it's $14 on their credit card and they almost missed it, but
Wow.
then they realized it was a reoccurring fee and it was not something that they signed up for. So just look for big and small and just out of the ordinary weird expenses that show up on credit cards or bank cards as well.
For sure, for sure. Well, everybody's going to get a copy of today's slides and a link to the recording. It'll have the contact information of everybody on there. So if you'd like to schedule a consultation with anybody that's been on here today, then you can certainly take care of that. We don't work together, like we partner together for these webinars, but everybody has their own business and model and how they roll. So when you reach out, then you'll kind of find out how the consultations work and how quick you can get in and that kind of thing. So thank you all of you for being here today. Thanks for our audience here today, and thank you for our presenters. It's certainly been a pleasure, and we'll look forward to connecting with everybody again soon. Take care.
Very good. Thank you.
Bye now.